On today's show, the Capitals' biggest stars absent in game number 3, and what do they have to do to win game number 4 next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the unacceptable performance in game number 3. The Capitals could not score a single goal. This is not how you're going to win hockey games, folks. You can have the greatest netminder, you can have the greatest this and greatest that, but the hard, cold facts are the Capitals' biggest stars have not shown up this series, and more specifically in game number 3, what needs to change? I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about what do the Capitals have to do to win game number 4. It's getting uncomfortable, Capitals fans, as they have won 1 game out of this series, and it's not going to get that much easier. How do the Capitals pick up a big win in game number 4? I'll talk about that a bit later. I'll talk about the biggest players need to show up. I'm talking Alex Ovechkin, who has put up 0 points in this second round series. But just to get it going here, the Capitals' brutal loss in game number 3. Unacceptable is what I'm going to say. And it's like, I don't know if the biggest players on this team are just mailing it in, or they don't care, or they feel like they're unwinnable games. I'm talking Carlson. I'm talking Ovechkin. Where are you that, this whole season, the team was fixated on Alex Ovechkin catching and passing Wayne Gretzky. And they're like, well, we did that. I guess good enough. This team has has lost their mojo. It's lost its rhythm. And if they don't figure it out in a hurry, they're going to worry about setting up tea time instead of who they're going to be playing in the next round. We need to see more from our players. I don't want to push it too far, but it is. We're at a point in this postseason where everything the Capitals have accomplished, winning the Metro, winning the Eastern Conference, can get sucked out of the room in a moment's notice if the Capitals cannot find a way to take care of the Carolina Hurricanes. Let's dive into that in this first segment of the show. This one hurts. The Capitals played their best first period of the series. And if you were watching the game, there was a feeling of optimism that, hey, maybe this team is going to do the unthinkable thing and win another game, and they're going to do it in Carolina. Not the case, but they did. They played their best first period of the series, maybe of the entire postseason, and still walking away with nothing. Unacceptable. I just think that in the first period alone, the Capitals did not capitalize on the opportunities that they were given or the opportunities that they made, and the Carolina Hurricanes took advantage. Between the first and second period, you got to believe that Rod Brind'Amour read his team the axe, saying, this is a team. This Capitals team is not engaged. Let's really take it to them. And they did it in the physicality department that they went after the Capitals. And this big, tough Capitals team didn't have the answer. You saw Alex Ovechkin getting thrown to the ice with no response. You saw Tom Wilson getting pushed around. You saw Connor McMichael getting pushed around. Where was the response? Where was the tough Capitals team that we've seen? Hello, Capitals. Are you out there somewhere? It was not apparent out on the ice. That's the story of game 3. All gas early, a brick wall named Frederik Andersen, and a total unraveling from there. Unacceptable. And, it's what it's all about. I think that going through this season as a Capitals fan, as someone that hosts this show, you're just going based on what you see through the season and how, dominant the Capitals were. Well, what have we seen in the postseason? Not just for the Capitals, but I'm going to go ahead and say for Winnipeg and a lot of the teams that were dominant winners throughout the season. The stats mean absolutely zero once you get to the postseason. So let's break it down. The first 20 minutes, pure fire. Ovechkin had 5 shots in 23 seconds. The forecheck was relentless. Carolina couldn't get out of their own zone. Momentum, all Capitals. So what happened there? Why can they not make the most of their opportunities? You saw a frustrated Alex Ovechkin. Rarely do you see a frustrated Alex Ovechkin, but you saw a frustrated Ovi out on the ice that didn't have the answer. And, Ovi is a guy that I think that kind of feeds into vibes. If things are going well, he can be the guy that can rise to the challenge. But when it seems like the Capitals are getting worked over, sometimes he struggles. So the first 20 minutes, pure fire, and then silence. Andersen stopped 21 shots. He faced Logan Thompson, who we know is one of the front runners at certain points of the season for the Vezina, or second, I think was the highest projected for him. The backbone of this playoff run finally looked beatable, giving up 4 goals on 28 shots and finishing with his worst game of the postseason. When things go bad for the Capitals, they go bad in a big way. And for the Capitals not to be able to muster a single goal, listen, I hate to say it, Capitals fans, this season is going to be over sooner than anyone really thinks now. But the real gut punch, the Caps deserved better. But that doesn't matter in me. If you don't finish, the scoreboard doesn't care. And you can talk about the star power. You can talk about Alex Ovechkin, and one of the knocks of the Carolina Hurricanes is they don't have really any real big star power. That's what you often hear. That's why they brought Ratnan in the first place, because they need a star on that team. I'm here to tell you there's a lot of stars in the making on the Carolina Hurricanes. And if you don't know, why don't you go ahead and take a look at the box score? Those stars are the ones that put Carolina up. Maybe that guy named Svechnikov should ring a bell, and if it doesn't, it should, because he is a premier talent on the team. Now, despite the fact that Alex Ovechkin fed him a diet of knuckle sandwiches a few years ago, he is taking his game to the next level. And if you're looking for a star, one of the stars, I guess, as a Carolina Hurricanes outsider, I'm going to say it's Svechnikov. Broke through late in the second on a face-off play that exposed John Carlson. And I'll talk about him later, but John Carlson, I don't know if it's something that we'll find out that after the season wraps up that he's dealing with some sort of injury or what the story is. But, the steady Eddie, the minute monster of the Capitals for years, has struggled in the postseason. I know that he got that power play goal, but all things considered, we need to see more from John Carlson. Defensively, offensively, we need to see more. Then Roslovic beat Thompson short-sided on a PP. Then Eric Robinson skated right through Carlson to make it 3-0. Are you noticing a trend there that John Carlson's name is peppered throughout this? And that's when Lenovo Center was rocking. And, oftentimes people say that you can't quantify fan noise, and you can. When you're playing well, and and Carolina was rocking, they used it to their advantage. So the biggest takeaway, you can't waste your best period of the series and expect to survive. The Caps opened the door, and Carolina buried them for it. They smelled blood in the water. They sensed weakness. Just like when you're around a dog as a child, or anyone really, they say, don't be scared. They can sense weakness. The Carolina Hurricanes could sense weakness on the Capitals, and they pounced on them. And guess what? We're kind of up against a brick wall right now. And I know if you want to harken back to the 2018 Stanley Cup season, that, they were up against it at points as well. I'm not saying they're out of it, but what I'm going to say is the Capitals need to see a whole lot more from their star players, or it's going to be over sooner than anyone thinks. If you want to take a look at more of a granular level here about, how the game played out here, Carolina 28 shots versus the Capitals 21. The power play, Bang, bang, bang. I've been banging on special teams all season. Guess what? The Carolina Hurricanes made good on both of their power play opportunities, and the Capitals did not. You need to, make the most of your opportunities. And one of the things that Spencer Carberry said is the perceived notion in game number one was that there was no space, there was no time until they poured over the film. And there's like, hey, guys, just slow it down a second. There is opportunities. You just need to make the most of it. So I think the Capitals in this last game, game number 3, they stuck to the script. And then when the physicality, once the chirping and everything that took place in the second and third period, the Capitals went into fight or flight mode again, something that we have seen from this team. But Carolina doing the physicality, that was supposed to be the Capitals' strong suit, 47 hits versus the Carolina's 47 hit versus the Capitals' 43. And those are the kind of things that are going to get drawn into focus. What do we need to see in game number 4 is an improved performance, which I'll touch on in the final segment of the show. But this game 3 was unacceptable for a team that we know is capable of more. We see what they did all season long. So that is the thing that they're going to have to do. They're going to have to dial in. And when you have a really great opportunity, like in the first period, you need to make the most of those opportunities. All right. So coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the Capitals' biggest stars. They need to show up. I'm talking Logan Thompson. I'm talking Ovechkin, Carlson. What do we need to see from them? I'll discuss straight ahead. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So the Capitals' biggest players need to show up. Again, you talk about just the wealth of talent that is within the Capitals organization. And on paper, it seems like it should be that much better than the Carolina Hurricanes. The secret sauce, I hate to say, the systems that Carolina rolls out are better than the Capitals. And if you want proof in the pudding, take a look at who's winning and who's losing, and ultimately who very well might win this series. The Capitals need to dig deep. I don't think that Spencer Carberry's systems are wrong. I just think that perhaps they need tweaking, or I think the Capitals need to adhere to those plans a lot better, because I'm feeling a little uncertain here, Capitals fans, as I record this on Sunday morning, going into game number 4, again at Lenovo Center, where it's going to be their advantage again. So the Capitals need to batten down the hatches. They need to see more from their star players. And if you take a look at what the Capitals have accomplished just through the regular season, it's pretty impressive. And, you want to talk about the Capitals fixated on big things in the goal scoring department. I would like to see some of that evidence out on the ice here. Alex Ovechkin, during the regular season, 44 goals. Tom Wilson, 33. Protas, 30. Strome, 29. Connor McMichael, 26. Where in the world are the star players in the postseason? Because if you take a look at the postseason, Alex Ovechkin, through both series, this in the first and second series, 4 goals. Connor McMichael, 4 goals. Tom Wilson, 3. We need to see more. And Alex Ovechkin in this second round, a complete nothing burger. Alex Ovechkin getting involved physicality, so maybe not a total nothing burger, but next to nothing burger. We need to see him scoring goals. That's his bread and butter. Anything else is just a bonus. We need to see more from the Great Eight. So let's dive into that in the second segment here. Let's call it what it is. It's a disappearing act by two of the leaders of the franchise. This series, and especially Game 3, has exposed a painful truth. When the moment got bigger, Ovechkin and Carlson got smaller. What gives? I really don't know. And, we saw this from Alex Ovechkin last postseason. In the first round, many people said he seemed disinterested, and I kind of agree with that sentiment, is that he didn't show up. What's going on with Ovechkin? Ovi has 0 points through 3 games. 0. That's not just shocking. That's historically rare. He didn't go 3 games scoreless all season long. As I said on the show, as Alex Ovechkin goes, so go the Capitals. Kind of true for the good and the bad. Alex Ovechkin not showing up and the Capitals not winning. Tom Wilson is doing what he can do. If I want to give credit where credit's due, we could have seen more from Tom in Game 3. But when the Capitals have showed up or when they needed a momentum shift, Tom Wilson, good old number 43, has been the guy to get it done. But he can't do it alone. So they need to see more. But as far as Ovechkin is concerned, you could see the frustration in the first period. 5 quick shots and then a visible emotional drop. He's pushing, he's trying, but he's just not there. Again, I don't know. I know that he had that injury, a long time ago against Jack McBain, that lower leg injury where he missed a substantial amount of time, but he went on to do great things. So I don't really know what's going on with Ovi. Spencer Carberry, though, he didn't hold back. He said, quote, "They don't need to score every game, but we do need some production," unquote. That is a politician's version of saying we need to see more from our captain. And I know that, Alex Ovechkin, like I talked about in yesterday's show, is oftentimes not on the ice late in games anymore. But, you hate to think of the greatest goal scorer of all time as a liability. And I'm not here to totally dunk on Alex Ovechkin, but we need to see more from him. And then there's Carlson, a guy, just a steady Eddie, to use a Craig Laughlin term, all season long and all career long, really. We've talked about it all year. When he's good, he's steady. When he's off, it's chaos. Game 3 was the latter. It was a frustrating performance from John Carlson, a guy that is the minute monster, a guy that, in a large way has put the Capitals in the position that they are now. When you think of the guys that have done it this season, it's Logan Thompson, it's Ovechkin, it's these kind of guys. But John Carlson, make no mistake about it, has been huge. And, just everyone that listens and watches this show, you can chime in as well, as I've heard this from quite a few different people on YouTube and the audio platforms, is what gives with John Carlson. Yes, guys, I hear you loud and clear. And that was made most evident in game number 3. On the ice for all 4 Hurricanes goals. Burned clean by Svechnikov and Robinson. His pairing with Chychrun looked disjointed and slow. His 5-on-5 numbers were amongst the worst on the team. Again, I'm not trying to dunk on these guys that I love Carlson. I love Ovechkin. But, like what I say, it's called show business, not show happy, that I'm a Capitals fan, but I'm in the business of winning hockey games. And I know that Ovechkin and Carlson are as well, but we have got to see more. Now, even more telling about all this is both power play goals came with Carlson on the 4th and the 4th line out there. The Hurricanes targeted them and they got results. If you want to talk about a guy with a high hockey IQ, I'm here to tell you, and I'm a Capitals fan, but I'm giving credit where credit's due. Brind'Amour adjusts to the situation. His team struggled in the first. Guess what? He made changes. He sensed that blood in the water and made the most of the opportunity. He's like, hey, that guy that's normally good isn't playing. That 4th line isn't playing that well. And that is what happened. The Caps leadership group has carried this team for over a decade. And for that, we can never forget. But on Saturday night, they were passengers, and it showed. That is the tough thing about this team right now. And, I understand that it's not over, but it is going to be an uphill climb for this Capitals team to move on to the next round. The biggest takeaway is if the Capitals' biggest names don't show up in this series, it's over. And right now, they're ghosts. So, I don't want to get paranormal with you, but the ghosts, those players that are ghostly, they need to manifest themselves and get some production out on the ice. And when I talk about players, and I'll talk about them in the third segment, that, it is the secondary and the tertiary players out there that get production. But the stars, we need to see them. There's a reason that Ovechkin's name is in bright letters, and they're going to build a statue of him outside the new Cap One Arena, or, John Carlson and all the accolades. We need to see it. And, that is the biggest takeaway from this. The star players need to show up if the Capitals have any plans of moving on to the next round. All right, so coming up here after the break, how did the Capitals do just that? Win game number 4. There's a lot at stake here. How did the Capitals win game 4? I'll discuss straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So I'm a kind of guy that likes to live in the right here, right now. I beat you over the head about what went wrong in game number 3 and, well, the second round in general. Now it's the task at hand. How do you win game number 4? If you're going to concentrate and fixate on game number 3 and how the Capitals are in this position, you're going to lose. It's about brushing your shoulders off, assessing, going over the film, and getting ready for game number 4. A lot is at stake, so let's dive into that in the final segment of the show. There's no wiggle room anymore. Game 4 isn't just another playoff night. It's the season, period. Lose, and you're starting down a 3-1 series hole with 2 games left. And that's not good, where the Caps have never won in the playoffs in Carolina. So it is going to be difficult for the Capitals to overcome. I get that. But a lot is at stake, and a lot is expected of this team. If you're going to fight, it has to be now. Let's talk about what has to change if the Caps are going to tie this thing up. Start fast and finish. Game 3's first period was incredible, but it doesn't matter if you can't bury a puck. The Caps need to score early and often. And, you can say, hey, that was a good opportunity. That was a close chance. Went off the iron. Good. You need to find the back of the net. And part of the reason that Ryan Leonard isn't out on the ice right now is because he couldn't convert on his opportunities. The whole team could take a page from that, is that you guys know how to score goals. This isn't beer league. These are pro hockey athletes. You got to find a way to beat Frederik Andersen. I know he's been tough. The Stars have to lead. Ovechkin, Strome, and Wilson. The top 6 needs to hit the scoreboard. A single point from that group is not enough. And, Strome, a guy that has been part of the secret sauce for the Capitals all season long. Well, let's just say that he has not showed up in a big way in the postseason here. We need to see more from him as well. I'm not going to say that he has got no contributions, but we need to see more from him. So that's the big thing that I'm going to take away from this one, is that I'm not saying, other than Alex Ovechkin, who's been pretty much zeros, they're getting production. We just need to see more production from those players. And when I'm talking about it, McMichael, Protas, kind of the secondary scorers, if you will, had 0 attempts in game 3. That's almost impossible. The team needs bottom 6 energy now more than ever. And that's the big thing. So I'm talking McMichael, Protas. I'm talking the bottom 6. We need to see scoring throughout the lineup. I think that's the big thing to take away from here. Logan Thompson needs to bounce back. I hate to say it. Logan Thompson appears to me to be, he seems to be a little bit of a head case at times. That game where he was kind of getting outworked and he said my bell was wrong, even though I'm grabbing at my leg, I had to leave the game. That I don't know what's going on with Logan Thompson. He doesn't seem like he's totally dialed in, and I don't know if that's because of an injury. I don't know if has something else going on, but he is not 100% dialed in. We've seen glimpses of greatness. To be clear here, I'm not diminishing what he's done. He has looked phenomenal at points in the postseason here. But then there's been other opportunities where he's been, I'm just going to say, less than stellar. No goalie is perfect, but Thompson's been great until game 3. He needs to steal a period maybe the whole game. And he's done that. I mean, to be clear here, I'm going to circle back a little bit here. He has stole games for the Capitals all season long in the postseason, but we can't have one-off games. And I understand they can't be perfect, but you got to be darn near perfect if you're going to win these games. Special teams needs to flip the script. The Caps got a power play late in the second, down 2-0, and fizzled. Carolina has 2 power play goals this series. That's the margin. So that is difficult. The Capitals, like I've said, banging that drum all season long about making the most of your opportunities. You need to make more. So here's a big thing. There's still time. This isn't post-mortem, but it's a turning point. Lose game 4, and the mountain is almost too steep. Win, and suddenly it's a best of 3, and you've got a fresh grip on the wheel. This is it. Game 4 is where you draw the line and fight for your playoff life. Everything is on the table now. Again, I've said this before, and if you want to go back to the first round, Tom Wilson's big hit on Carrier changed the momentum. The physicality was just not. We need to see something to just get the Capitals in it when they're getting outworked. You know what I would have said in the last game? Drop the mitts. Tom Wilson kind of fight. If you could find a dance partner, might have switched the momentum. To the people that say fighting doesn't have a spot in the NHL, that is, you're not paying attention, because it does. I mean, you saw not a physical fight, but you saw that Martinook hit in the second period, which really started the momentum, the physicality. And then the Hurricanes were just having their way physically with the Capitals, and it wasn't pretty. And I was sitting back watching. I'm like, where's the response? Are they being fed the line that you don't want to fight because then you're going to spend time in the box? And, touche, that's true. But when a team is outworking you, you got to have some response or you appear weak. And I'm here to tell you that and I understand the Capitals did get in hits, but if you want to just take a look at Ovechkin just getting brutalized out there at points, there needs to be a response in the physicality department. And I understand physicality can't win games. They need to score goals. And I get that. They really, really do. But it needs to be a broad spectrum, launching all your missiles in this next game to maintain sustainability in this series, or it's going to be next to impossible to win. I'm not here to say that it's over, but we need to see more from the Capitals. That starts from the stars, their star players, and work on the way down. Logan Thompson needs to dial in his head and be 100% out on the ice. If the Capitals have a chance of winning this. It's not going to be easy. Again, it's going to be another one in Carolina. They have got to find a way to rally and pick up a big win, or it's going to be setting up tea time instead of worrying about who they're going to be playing in the next round. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, as they have you covered 5 days a week, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.